What happens when one of Hollywood's most poised and private stars steps into a studio renowned for chaos and unfiltered opinions, and suddenly finds herself pushed to her limit on live television? That was exactly the scene that unfolded one morning on The View, and for anyone watching, it was as electrifying as it was tense. Before we dive in, remember to subscribe to Prime Narrator, hit that like button, and share this story, because what you're about to hear captures one of the most unguarded, raw moments on daytime TV in years. The day started like any other, with the studio lights blazing bright, the audience clapping in time to the show's theme song, and Whoopi Goldberg's familiar grin opening the broadcast. But there was a subtle charge in the air that morning, a sort of anticipatory hum that hinted something different was about to happen. Today's guest wasn't just any celebrity promoting a new project. This was Scarlett Johansson, a woman known for her carefully curated public persona, her calm, collected composure, and the way she'd navigated Hollywood interviews for over 2 decades without ever truly losing her footing. Fans of the show may not have expected what was about to unfold. Scarlett entered the studio with her signature elegance, hair pulled into a precise bun, wearing a simple black dress that stood out against the studio's bright, colorful backdrop. She was here to promote her latest film, an indie drama exploring themes of identity, motherhood, and personal resilience. Her publicist leaned in during the green room briefing, whispering warnings about the unpredictable nature of the show. "Just keep it light," she said. "If the conversation veers political or controversial, steer it back to the film." Scarlett nodded, offering a polite, faint smile. She'd done hundreds of interviews before. How tricky could this really get? The applause swelled as Scarlett made her entrance. She smiled, waved, and slid into the chair beside Whoopi, Sunny Host, and Joy Behar. The initial exchange was warm, almost mundane. Compliments on the film, remarks about her striking presence in person, and the usual light banter. Yet even in those first moments, there was a subtle weight behind Whoopi's voice that hinted this would not be a standard promotional segment. "So, Scarlett," Whoopi began, leaning slightly forward, her hands clasped deliberately, "you've portrayed so many strong women on screen. But recently, some people online have questioned a few of your casting choices. How do you respond to that?" Scarlett blinked, slightly caught off guard, but she maintained her composure. "I think every actor's responsibility is to explore humanity in all its forms," she said evenly. "My goal has always been to tell meaningful stories." Joy leaned in, a small smirk playing at the corner of her lips. "But you can see why some people might take issue, right? Certain roles, some argued, could have gone to others." Scarlett nodded subtly, acknowledging the concern without conceding the point. "I understand that perspective," she said. "I also believe in creative freedom and the ability to learn from our choices." Whoopi's tone sharpened and the conversation shifted. "But isn't that a bit of a privilege? To be able to learn after taking a role that someone else might never have had the chance to audition for?" The audience felt the temperature in the room spike. Scarlett's fingers tapped the table lightly, a subtle rhythm marking the tension. Her smile now felt measured, tighter. "Everyone learns in their own time," she said carefully. "I've acknowledged my mistakes and experiences, but I don't think it's fair to define an entire career by one controversy." The dialogue grew denser, the tension palpable. "People are defined by their choices," Whoopi pressed, her gaze unyielding. The camera lingered on Scarlett's eyes as they flickered ever so slightly, a hint that her patience was thinning. "I think I've been held to a different standard," Scarlett replied softly but firmly. "That's not bitterness. That's fact." The studio fell into that rare, electrifying silence, the kind that feels almost tangible. Scarlett leaned forward, her tone calm but resolute. "I'm proud of the work I've done and the conversations my films have inspired. But it's time to move forward. I won't relitigate the same things endlessly, especially not when some of the people driving the conversation should know better." The words hit like a bolt of lightning. Gasps and murmurs fluttered through the audience. Whoopi raised an eyebrow, lips tightening. "Should know better?" she asked, a mix of disbelief and curiosity in her voice. "Yes," Scarlett replied. "You've been in this industry a long time. You've seen how women are treated when they speak up, how easily their narratives get twisted. I came here to talk about my film, not to defend my humanity. The tension was almost unbearable. Joy tried to lighten the moment with humor, but even the laughter was nervous, acknowledging the intensity rather than diffusing it. No cage match, Scarlett said softly, her calm voice cutting through the tension. Just honesty. Whoopi's expression softened slightly. Fair enough, she said. Honesty's good. But when you sit in this chair, you know we'll ask the real questions. And I respect that, Scarlett replied. But there's a difference between a question and an accusation. The crowd reacted audibly, sensing the subtle line Scarlett had drawn. Even the production team offstage gestured toward a break, but Whoopi ignored them, leaning in with deliberate intensity. You know, Scarlett, I like you. You're smart, thoughtful. But sometimes when people in your position talk about double standards, it can come off as out of touch. Millions of dollars in platform privilege. When you say you've been punished, some might not buy it. Scarlett's jaw tightened. I didn't say I was a victim. I said I was tired of being mischaracterized. And that matters. It shapes how people perceive everything I do. A hush fell over the studio, the weight of her words resonating in the room. The audience seemed almost protective, cheering and murmuring support. Whoopi raised her hand, a sly mixture of sarcasm and acknowledgement in her voice. I've been around too. I use my power carefully. Always have. Scarlett smiled faintly. Then you understand exactly what I mean. And with that, the segment cut to commercial, though the air was still charged. Offstage, the crew whispered. Producers argued quietly about the narrative, and Scarlett's publicist hovered, tense but steady. Yet even as the lights dimmed, everyone knew this wasn't over. When the cameras returned, the audience's energy shifted. There was a nervous electricity, a sense that something real and unfiltered was about to continue. Whoopi opened the next segment with a line that sounded casual but carried unmistakable weight. We're back with Scarlett Johansson, who's starring in a new film about identity and redemption. Speaking of redemption, let's talk about how Hollywood handles that word these days. Scarlett's lips curved in a small, knowing smile. That's a big topic, she said lightly, but the calm belied the fire in her tone. Sunny steered the conversation gently toward the film itself, highlighting its emotional depth. Scarlett responded genuinely, acknowledging the impact her work had on audiences, before Joy leaned in again with a pointed question. You know, when you take on these roles, Joy asked, does it ever feel like you're reflecting on your own past choices, working through your experiences on screen? Scarlett hesitated, careful with her phrasing. I bring something personal to my work, she said, but I don't use my roles as therapy. I explore empathy, not absolution. The crowd laughed softly at her candid honesty, a brief release of tension. But Whoopi stayed alert, probing further. Do you think Hollywood practices empathy, though? Or is it mostly for show? You're not wrong, Scarlett replied. A lot of it is performative. People want to appear progressive without changing anything. Outrage often matters more than progress. The audience reacted immediately, half murmurs of agreement, half cheers. Sunny shifted, navigating the tension. Whoopi tilted her head, measuring Scarlett's words carefully. But doesn't that risk sounding dismissive of those genuinely hurt? Scarlett met her gaze squarely. We have to distinguish accountability from performative outrage. Growth isn't about attention, it's about action. And far too often good people are flattened into villains for headlines. The studio hung on her every word. Each pause, each measured response drew the audience closer into the moment. Scarlett spoke of mistakes, accountability, and the double standards women face, points that resonated sharply. The tension softened only slightly when humor broke through, but the gravity of the conversation lingered. She addressed the expectations placed on women in Hollywood, the exhaustion of defending one's humanity, and the strength required to reclaim personal narrative in the face of public scrutiny. The audience, sensing the sincerity and composure behind her words, erupted into applause multiple times. Every statement was deliberate, every reaction measured, but the impact was undeniable. As the episode ended, the ripples extended far beyond the studio. Clips of Scarlett's lines like, "Silence doesn't earn you peace," It just lets other people write your story for you. And one comes from arrogance, the other from exhaustion, flooded social media. TikTok x Instagram. Millions replayed, debated, and dissected the exchange. Headlines erupted worldwide. Viewers praised her composure, others criticized, and the conversation quickly became a cultural touchstone about celebrity, authenticity, and women's public labor. Later, Scarlett reflected on the interview in the quiet of her apartment. Watching herself, she saw not just an actress performing, but a woman standing firm in the face of scrutiny, measured and grounded despite the intensity of the moment. A message from Whoopi landed on her phone. "You held your ground." "That's rare. Don't let the noise drown out what mattered," Scarlett replied simply. "Thank you. You asked the questions I needed to answer." By the following morning, Hollywood and social media alike were buzzing. Analysts, bloggers, and fans debated the confrontation while Scarlett moved through the city calm, radiant, and unshaken. The narrative shifted. What started as a clash became an example of strength, honesty, and real conversation, proof that women could confront criticism without surrendering their voice. Through it all, Scarlett maintained her composure. She didn't need the world to understand her. She had spoken her truth. And in that she found a rare kind of peace. The quiet power of stillness amidst the storm.